All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We did a quick survey to find out who is using what tools. We do have some people using Excel, Restock Pro, other softwares. We've got a bunch of people here from SoStock, so it's great to see you guys. And let's go ahead and jump on in. More people will join in as they do. We will be answering questions, but for the most part, I'll reserve the questions to the end unless they're relevant. If you do have questions, go ahead and enter them in the Q&A section. You can also enter them in the chat section, but we'll go ahead and get going, and I will make sure that you guys understand things as we go. I will be going somewhat rapid fire here since there's a lot of content to get through. And some of you I know have just a general basic understanding of inventory. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and share my screen. That would be important to do. All right, can you guys see my screen? Type something in the chat, make sure that you guys can see my screen. That'd be helpful. So first and foremost, welcome to 2022. We did make it, we did survive. Everyone thought that we would be out of the woods in terms of supply chain on this side of COVID, but we are not yet. So we need to be continuing to be diligent in inventory management and understanding that we're not at a place where this is just a temporary situation. We should see improvements as the year goes on, but we can't operate in this kind of, get inventory in at all costs. Pay whatever you have to pay and do whatever you have to do to get inventory in. We have to be a lot more diligent as to being precise and finding ways to regain that profit margin that we, sometimes had to forego just for the sake of staying in stock and staying in business. So this year, I'm going to be extremely focused on how to use inventory as well as proper cash flow management and understanding cash flow to be able to improve your profit margins. So that's what I'm very, very excited about. And we'll be talking about some basics of inventory management, some of these things that you already know, as well as some of the things that you should be doing to change and streamline your business to regain that profitability. All right, so first and foremost, for any of you who are on the call that are not familiar with me, I've been selling on Amazon since 2014. I'm the co-founder of a company called SoStock, and I've been immersed in the Amazon inventory space for over 3 years, spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8-figure sellers. I've written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain management, been on dozens of podcasts. Our software has over 1,000 users, and we're currently recommended as the top tool for masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators. So that's a little bit about me and kind of where I come from and why I'm speaking with you today. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So first of all, numbers don't lie. That's one thing that people love about math. Numbers don't lie, but there are times when they do. And I want to talk about how it's possible for numbers to lie to you. How does this actually happen? So first and foremost, the most important aspect of your forecasting is to get your sales velocity correct. The problem with getting your sales velocity wrong is that that problem multiplies for as many days as you are placing your order. So if you have a 3-month order, an order that's going to cover you for 3 months, and that number is wrong, that daily sales velocity is wrong, then that's going to multiply across those 3 months, and it's going to be a problem for you. So what we like to talk about is a concept called daily adjusted velocity. And daily adjusted velocity is the concept that not all data is created equal. So there are times when your data needs to be adjusted to be more accurate for what's going to happen in the future. First of all, you need to use averages instead of total monthly sales. So you can't just look at, Christmas time and say, okay, from October to the end of December, I sold X number of units. So that's how much I'm going to order for next year. That doesn't work when you have anomalies. And those anomalies can show up in the form of sales spikes and in stock outs, and sometimes even in deep discounts. So those are the things that you need to remove from your system. You can get your daily adjusted velocity. Think of it as true velocity. Daily adjusted velocity is getting your daily average number of sales, but removing stockouts and removing sales spikes to get that true average. I'm going to go through an example to explain to you exactly how this works. So first and foremost, we'll talk about stockout, and this can also apply to sales spikes. Sales spikes are consider, for example, that you were featured on the Martha Stewart, network, and she said that this is the best tool for, garlic pressers that I've been able to find. And then you have all these huge sales for, a couple of days, and that would be a sales spike. Something that's a significant boost in your sales that's not going to repeat itself. So this applies to that, but we're going to go through an example regarding stockouts and how you can potentially get into trouble with stockouts and create a stockout cycle. So I like to do it with a case study. We have an example of a seven-figure Amazon seller in the wholesale space who came to SoStock after years of using another software. And he had stocked out enough times on his best sellers with this other software that he built his own spreadsheet so that he could run the numbers on his best sellers to improve the accuracy of his projections. So he was using two different systems and neither one of them were working. They were both every now and then causing stockouts for him, and he couldn't figure out why. So he came into SoStock, and SoStock predicted his velocity much higher than he considered it should be. And so that kind of raised some red flags, and he started digging into the numbers and found out what was actually happening. So here's what he found. So first off, the first algorithm, the spreadsheet, or the original software, was saying that he was selling 8 units a day. That was the velocity that he was given. The spreadsheet he built said he was selling 10 units a day. This is all the same data, right? All the same data being plugged in. And then SoStock was saying you were selling 15 units a day. Your true velocity is 15 units a day. So he would place weekly orders. And if he had followed the first algorithm, he would have stocked out in day 4. If he had followed the second algorithm, he would have been stocked out in day 5. And the final algorithm, the 15 units a day, was a thing that kept him in stock and avoided stockouts, was able to create that accuracy for stockouts. So the question comes, why does that happen, right? Why do we have all the same data and yet there are different answers in all of these different algorithms? What is going on and which one is actually right? So the first question that we like to ask is, did you have stock? Obviously, if you didn't have stock, you couldn't sell it. And so therefore, you're not going to be able to, have sales during that time. So some of these algorithms look at simply, did you have stock? This is information that can be pulled from the Amazon app, the Amazon API. Historically, it can pull those numbers back. It can do it on a granular level. The reports that you're exporting do not give you that granular data, right? You would have to go in and look at the sales for every single day and record the sales for every single day in order to get the type of granularity that the Amazon API gives you. So if you don't have an API pull, if you're not using a software like SoStock, you can track it on a stockout log and start doing those calculations and figure that out on a stockout log. And we have a DIY spreadsheet that helps to do that. It's a bit more work, especially as you get more SKUs, but it's something as opposed to not tracking it at all. So first of all, did you have stock? Now, the second question that we ask is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So maybe you took on some sales, but you didn't take on as many as you should have, right? You're used to doing 100 and you did 25. That's a problem. So these types of patterns can come from, lower sales days right before you stock out, lower sales days right as you come back into stock. Amazon finding an extra unit or two during a stock out, right? You're doing zeros and all of a sudden you have one sale on a day. And also sales interrupted by listing suspensions. So these other algorithms don't take those things into account. If you had some sales, then that's counted as a day. So that becomes a huge problem. So let's look at algorithm 1 versus algorithm 3 that we talked about in the previous scenario. So most of them are looking only for number one, did you have stock? They're not looking for these kind of weird anomalies. So looking at all of the data, we look at algorithm 1 versus 3. We look at we're doing 100 sales a day. That's the average until this period of time when we have a problem with stocking out. So on the left side, algorithm 1 counts this day of 23 sales as an in-stock day, and the 1 sale as an in-stock day, and 13 sales as an in-stock day. Whereas we count all of them factored as stockouts. Those are going to be numbers that throw off our average, especially when we're doing a 30-day average. So if you're looking at a 30-day average and you are out of stock or you have extremely low sales days during part of that time, it's going to make your calculations wrong. So analyzing the data incorrectly is how the numbers can be the same and you get two different stories. So this is what we essentially do is we look at algorithm 1 and they say that there are 26 in-stock days. We say there are only 23 in-stock days. And when you break down the math and you figure out the averages when you're excluding the out-of-stock days, you see that algorithm 1 would say that you are doing 90 units a day, where algorithm 3 says you're doing 100 units a day. So that's a difference of 10 units. And you multiply that across, 3-4 months worth of stock, you're going to be out of stock, over 1,000 units in some instances. So it becomes extremely important for you to get this calculation correct. So as you are putting your forecasting together, make sure that you understand how the stock out calculation is working and that it's actually factoring out these things that could cause you to have lower sales periods. And again, this applies to sales spikes as well. And you can have over ordering when you have a big sales spike in your data that you don't remove. So you would treat it the same way. You would adjust your average based on removing that data. All right, now let's get into what the number one inventory mistake is that sellers make. So this is something that I have come across in not just my history of working with people on their inventory, but also I have a copywriting agency. We do sometimes email campaigns and have seen people run an email campaign, give away a 20% discount coupon, and then end up stocking out. So the number one mistake that sellers tend to make before restock limits came into play was marketing inside of a vacuum. We're all marketers, and we tend to get really excited when there is a new marketing strategy. We try it out, but we don't really see if there's enough inventory to sustain that type of marketing. So we tend to find that we can stock out based on our own decisions that we make in the marketing side of business. So inventory and marketing need to be coordinated. And especially because there are restock limits now, this is extremely important. So gone are the days of essentially just focusing on your best sellers and, waiting for the, and selling the rest through as, as luck would have it. We need to start marketing across our entire catalog. So not only is marketing going to have to do some heavy lifting, but inventory also has to work with marketing to keep them apprised of how the inventory side of things is doing and what help inventory needs to get some of that stock moving. So here are some ideas of what should be done in that instance, right? What are those vital marketing coordination points that are needed to be able to make all of this work? This is something I call inventory-minded marketing, right? Inventory and marketing working together. So first of all, marketing needs to give inventory their marketing plans. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to be sending out an email that includes some of these things I'm talking about, specifically this marketing planner. So this is the inventory-minded marketing planner, and this is essentially a tool for you to be able to note down exactly how each ASIN is going to be marketed, right? Are you going to do PPC campaign? Are you going to, how are we looking at the velocity? How are we calculating velocity? Are there any trends that we're looking at? Additional sales growth for PPC campaigns or, any aggressive sales campaigns you're doing? And then are there any lightning deals or email campaigns or influencer marketing that you're doing? You can pick a date range, put the number of units you think you're going to sell. And then lastly, any seasonal sales spikes. So if your product does really well in the summer, maybe you want to boost it by 50% in terms of sales. So that is the inventory minded marketing spreadsheet. Again, you'll get that after the end. I will be emailing out the replay as well as some little freebies. All right, then you have to have the marketing team provide data to, or the inventory team provide data to the marketing team. So there are specific reports that I recommend. These are all reports that are available in SoStocked. If you don't have them set up in SoStocked, you can take this training and go and set these up for yourself. But these are some top things that the inventory team should be monitoring and should be providing to marketing on a weekly or monthly basis so that the marketing team can construct a better marketing plan. So first is the stock out risk report. This is a report that says how many days that the product is going to potentially stock out, when it's going to come into stock again, and how many days it's stocked out over the past year. So you can start seeing that there may be a problem when you see that 29% of the year a product has been stocked out. That's an issue. You need to start digging into why that would be and how to improve your supply chain and your coordination to be able to avoid those stockouts in the future. If you don't have SoStocked, a good calculation for this that is fairly easy, and this is a very basic calculation, is your total inventory divided by your daily adjusted velocity equals your days of remaining stock. So you'll be able to use that to start figuring out when are you going to run out of stock and see if your next inventory is going to arrive before you run out of stock. All right, then you have the slow sellers report. So the slow sellers report, that report is essentially looking at which products you need to ramp up, right? You need to improve the sales, move this product, make it more successful, make it more, sell more, or you might end up having to just basically liquidate it, get rid of it because it becomes a liability, right? We want our inventory to be an asset, not a liability. It becomes a liability when it's costing you more in terms of lost sales from bestsellers because of restock limits or in terms of storage fees. It's costing you more than it's actually making you. So we want to make sure that we catch these early. So creating a slow sellers report would look something like this. You would have your daily adjusted velocity, like we talked about. You would have a range. You'd say, okay, 20 units or below, up to 5 units. So between 5 and 20 units, that's a slow seller, right? We might be able to revive that product, but it's a slow seller. So we need to push it up above the 20 sales a day range for it to be viable. So the marketing team should be able to run with that. They say, okay, it's doing 15 units a day. We need to get it to 21 units a day or better. So let's go and run some campaigns to help to boost that, right? Then you have the liquidation report. So if you fail to save that slow seller, it moves into a liquidation report. Liquidation is basically you don't plan on restocking, right? You need to basically sell through and remove it from FBA. You need to remove it because it's costing you storage fees and it's costing you space in your warehouses. So I would say, for some businesses, 5 units a day or less would make this fall into the liquidation category. For other sellers, this might be lower, this might be higher. It depends on your business, but you set a minimum and you say anything below 5 units a day or anything below X units a day is liquidation territory. It's just not working out, right? So use this plan, send this to your marketing team, devise a plan to see if you can market it out of your catalog, sell it out of your catalog, rather than having to straight liquidate it, right? See if you can use it to boost your restock limits, boost your sales velocity on the way out, rather than simply pulling it. You may get to a point where you just don't have a choice and you do have to remove it or send it to liquidation. But you want to see if you can find a way to remove it while boosting your restock limits and recovering some of that cash. I know I'm talking really fast. I'm going through this really fast because we have a lot of material, but again, go ahead and, raise your hand or ask a question, and I'm happy to further elaborate on some things if it's at all confusing at any point. All right, and now the last report would be the inventory team provides a report, which is an overstock report. right? You can do this in FBA, and then you can do this overall, right? Because you may have pulled inventory and you have a ton of inventory collecting fees at a third-party warehouse. That's something you want to watch out for. But I would do two separate reports. You have Overstock overall, and you have Overstock in FBA. So let's go ahead and talk about our FBA Overstock report. FBA Overstock report, this could cross over, and so items from the other reports could end up being on this report, but your best sellers could also show up on this report. What you're going to do is it's isolating stuff that you have excess inventory. So that may be 90 days of supply for you, or it may be 60 days of supply. If you have more than 60 days of supply or more than 90 days, that is something that could become a liability, right? It could start clogging up your restock limits. It could start clogging up your utilization. So you want to be able to figure out how you can clear space. You can avoid excess storage fees. You can also, though, use it to boost your restock limits and also improve ranking. So if you've got something that falls in the slow sellers as well as the overstock, that is a great opportunity to use that inventory to boost your rankings, to increase your sell-through, boost your rankings. It's a great opportunity to use that extra inventory to move your product into a more viable range and increase your daily sales velocity. All right, we do have a quick question. Okay, so Pamela asked, I recently bought SoStocked and plan to start using it next week. Please tell me SoStocked does everything you are talking about, or are there things that I need to do in addition to using your software? So all of these things I'm showing you, we currently do. The part that we're going to get into where we talk about saving money and increasing profitability with optimization, we are currently building a free tool. It won't be inside of SoStocked. It will be a free tool that everyone can access. We'll eventually build it into SoStock later in the year, but that's one thing that I will talk about that isn't able to be done within SoStocked. But all of this stuff that I'm showing you is able to be done in SoStocked. You can do some of this in spreadsheets if you want, but it becomes a lot more easy inside of SoStocked if you did sign up. All right. So thanks for that question. Okay. Let's see. All right. So let's talk about restock limits. I often do, I've done these talks inside of events. And so I put the elephant there since we talk a lot about marketing. Everyone talks about marketing. Here's this great marketing strategies. And the elephant in the room is, well, that's great, but what if I don't have the stock to be able to execute on any of those strategies? So you need to be able to plan accordingly, and you need to understand how is it possible to increase restock limits? What are those things that I should be focused on? What are the top metrics that I should be working on that will show Amazon that I deserve more space in their warehouses, right? So first and foremost, Amazon never intended to be a storage facility. They always intended to be a distribution center. And so them implementing these policies, that is working them more towards what their original mission was, to take on inventory and distribute it, not to just have a bunch of stuff sitting on shelves. They can't afford to do that. And while they are talking and have talked about getting rid of restock limits, we have not seen that. I would be surprised if it happened at all. I would be even more surprised if it happened this year. So don't bank on restock limits going away, right? If it does, that would be amazing. But it's not, I don't personally think it's looking great for this year. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right. We do have another question. I'll answer that one at the end. So let's talk about the number one metric. So Amazon has, various different metrics for inventory. The number one metric, however, is sell-through. Now, the way that we can kind of see the number one metric, we can understand that sell-through is the number one metric. How quickly can we sell through our inventory before having to restock? You look at the IPI score, right? And if you know your IPI score, you know that it has 4 different points of reference, right? They are looking at sell-through. So sell-through is 1 point. In-stock rate. In-stock rate affects sell-through. Excess inventory, which also affects sell-through, and then stranded inventory, which also has an impact on sell-through. So everything that they're tracking in your IPI score has to do with sell-through. Your restock limits have to do with sell-through. Everything that they are looking at is sell-through related. So the most important metric that Amazon has for inventory is sell-through. So understanding that, it's important to really look at the fact that, you know, it might make sense to understand how they actually calculate sell-through. This is directly from Amazon. They say your FBA rolling 90-day sell-through rate is the number of your units sold and shipped over the past 90 days, divided by the average number of units available at fulfillment centers during that time. So let's break that down into something you can actually understand. So we've got units sold and shipped within 90 days, and you divide that by the average number of units available. That equals sell-through. So if you have 9,000 units of sales in 90 days, and you only held 3,000 units on average, that would be a sell-through rate of 3 or a monthly turnover. So when you go into your IPI score and you see that number, whatever it is, 2.1, 1.8, whatever it is, that's how they're calculating this. So similarly, if you sold 9,000 units and you held 9,000 units on average, that's a sell-through of 1 or a quarterly turnover rate. So the higher the number, they want you to get this number higher, right? That's what they really want. They want to see you turning over inventory quickly. I'm just going to say as a caveat, there are other things that impact restock limits, you know, Prime Day, holidays, lack of warehouse space, where Amazon all of a sudden just tanks everybody's restock limits for no reason. All of those things are factors, but those are not things that we can control. That's Amazon's own internal system. What we can control is we can control our own sell-through rate. All right, now let's see how utilization is calculated. So we've got FBA inventory, and then we have all incoming shipments. Incoming shipments would be working, in transit, receiving, etc. All shipments. And then we have unfulfillable inventory. And all of that put together and combined equals out your utilization quantity, right? Available, incoming, and unfulfillable. The thing that's missing from here is removal orders and reserved inventory. Removal orders are counted as reserved inventory. And there are other reasons why you have reserved inventory. Inventory that's being checked in, that's being transferred to other places. Amazon on the record has said this does not count for your utilization, but we and many, many other sellers have seen otherwise. So your reserved inventory is counting as part of your utilization. If you've got some reserved inventory that's held up and that doesn't seem to be moving, that's a problem. And that's something that you may have to get a specialist to help you to look into. But just keep an eye on your reserved inventory. Make sure that that's clearing out within a reasonable amount of time. It's not a huge problem. It's kind of a glitch when it happens, but something that definitely should be addressed. If you have that problem, feel free to reach out to me. Vanessa Hung is someone who I've talked to about this a lot. FulltimeFBA.com, I believe, is her, fulltimeamazon.com is her website. She helps with these specialty things. All right, and then we've got the relationship between sell-through and utilization. So you can see that part at the bottom, average units available equals your average utilization. So you see that sell-through and utilization are very similar, and you see that utilization is something that you can start to track. Beyond just selling through, you need to start looking at how much space are you actually using. That will help you to improve your sell-through. Amazon has no sympathy for your stockouts. One thing to keep in mind is that the algorithm does not factor in stockouts. So Amazon's algorithm does not care that you had a stockout. It's not giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying, I know that you could have sold 3,000 units, but you stocked out. So I'm going to continue to give you that space because I know you can do it. It doesn't really care. It doesn't count that. And we could get into why, I think that is, but not really important. It doesn't count that. The thing that is important, though, is knowing what levers you can pull if you do stock out. So if you do stock out, here's 3 things that you can do. First and foremost, you can switch to fulfilled by merchant And if you don't have a relationship with a fulfillment center, an outside fulfillment center, it's time to go ahead and get one. I have some resources. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me. You can find me at sostock.com/connect, and I'm happy to give you some of those resources. But definitely get a fulfillment center. Even if you don't plan on using it very often, it's something to have, because fulfilled by merchant sales, FBM sales, count towards restock limits. Amazon is counting any sales that come through as contributing towards restock limits. So it's a way to continue to have your sales be boosted, even if you can't get your inventory into Amazon on time. You have this extra inventory to keep your restock limits from crashing. All right, the next would be run excess inventory flash sales. This is where those overstock and those liquidation reports become extremely helpful tools, because then you know what you have excess inventory of, and you can mark it across your entire catalog. So we used to have ASIN type limits, right? In 2020, where you ran out of stock on a product and that was it. You had no way of recovering that restock limit. The restock limit was siloed for that single ASIN. Now we have storage type limits. So anything on your catalog. So if you're looking at, standard, any of your standard products that are standard size products, any of those can be used to bolster your restock limits. You run out of, your best seller, you do a flash sale for one of your, excess inventory slow sellers, and that restock or that sales velocity will help your restock limits to be boosted. And lastly, use multi-channel fulfillment. Borrow sales velocity from your other channels, such as Shopify, right? Switch to multi-channel fulfillment sales. Those sales also contribute to restock limits. So do manual fulfillment orders. So if you've got someone who has, is ordering 30 units from you, you can fulfill it through Amazon, and that will essentially allow you to, to boost your restock limits. And actually this becomes relevant. Somebody asked me, what is the timing of the release of connecting Shopify? So we are working on Shopify. We had to do some refactoring of the website to make it faster. And we would like to say, within the next month, we'll be releasing it. There are some challenges that we have. Shopify is not formatted the same way Amazon is. So I can't promise in the next week, in the next month, but we are getting very, very close. So hopefully within the next month or so, but don't hold me to that, because the development team never likes us to throw answers out like that. Fantastic. Okay. Logistics flexibility. As you're building out your logistics plan, if you haven't reworked your logistics, I would be surprised if you haven't reworked your logistics. But I want to talk about why it's important to have flexibility. You need to have multiple different plans for getting your inventory into Amazon, and you need to do it in a way that is not going to cost you an arm and a leg and make your products unprofitable. So I have something called the golden rule, and that is don't ever let anyone have all your stuff. I learned this probably my second year of selling, when I put everything on a boat, and it was, let's say, a couple of days past the check-in time for Christmas, and then Amazon, quote unquote, lost it. I put everything on a boat, then I put everything on, one truck, and Amazon lost it. And that was my Christmas. That was my best-selling product for Christmas, and they found it again after Christmas. So that was when I developed the never let anyone have all your stuff rule. So how should your logistics look? You should always have a backup plan. So you should have your supplier, and your supplier has your inventory. Usually you want to fill a container. Well, you should produce more than a container and have the rest of that inventory kind of as a backup. That backup inventory will be, so you'll put your container on the ocean, then you'll have this backup inventory, and you'll have it for air freight. Okay, so you've got your your ocean freight and your air freight. And you're going to be only air freighting if you absolutely need to. That is extremely important because you don't want to incur that extra cost, if you don't have to. Then you want to be able to send to FBA or send to your 3PL. Then you have the same setup with your 3PL. You have your LTL and your FTL, and then you're holding inventory back at your 3PL in case you need it. If you need it, then you'll be able to send small parcel delivery, but only if you need to send that way. So you're reserving inventory at your warehouse just in case Amazon doesn't check your inventory in. Then you have FBM, like I mentioned, your warehouse that does your fulfillment, as well as FBA. We have a question here. Who will house backup inventory? My factory. Yeah, your factory will often house backup inventory, and they'll sometimes do it for free. So that's a way to save on some extra expenses. The other thing that they might be willing to do, which is something that we have with our own supplier, is hold your inventory, and that inventory that they're holding, they will have you pay that initial payment, but they may not have you pay for the entire order and only pay for what ships. So you might pay the final payment on the order that ships via ocean and only pay for that additional air shipment or whatever method you send that inventory. They'll only have you pay for that once it leaves their warehouse. So they would hold your inventory for free in the warehouse and only have you pay when it leaves that warehouse. So these are some terms that you might be able to discuss with your suppliers. All right, now I want to get into talking about ground freight. Ground freight is something that we kind of sometimes take for granted. We don't really look too much into it or really understand everything that's going on within the trucking industry necessarily. So let me know in the chat, I guess, if you ever wondered why it takes so long for your inventory to check in. Like sometimes people have, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks with their inventory not checking in. And sometimes it's sitting at Amazon and it shows that it was delivered, but it's not checking in. So if you ever wondered why that happened, there's actually a reason. And it comes when you understand how the trucking industry and Amazon freight and their trucking contracts work. Yeah, so Phil says he's waited 3 months once. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so here are a couple of tips for you to start to understand this, and with that understanding, make better decisions as to how you're shipping things into Amazon. So first and foremost, to understand how Amazon works, Amazon started something called Amazon Freight a few years ago. Amazon Freight, basically, they purchased a bunch of truck trailers. So they didn't own the trucks, they purchased these trailers. And they had, hundreds of trailers, probably thousands of trailers that they purchased. And then they started hiring independent trucking companies. Independent truckers, owner operators. And they said, you're going to pick up this trailer and you're going to load it with our stuff. You're going to send it into Amazon. You're going to drop the trailer. We're going to give you an empty trailer, and then you're going to leave and you're going to do it all over again. It was a great setup, and it worked beautifully until it didn't. And what ended up happening is that at some point, they were not able to unload those trailers fast enough. So they just sat there. So your stuff literally was dropped in a parking lot and sat and wasn't able to be handled, because the warehouses, they've had a lot of trouble with warehousing, keeping staff in between July and October of last year. It was something like 250,000 people started working at Amazon in those warehouses and quit within a week of working there. So they have immense turnover. And so they had these problems with not having these trailers unloaded. So that's probably what happened to your inventory, it got dropped and it got left there and it didn't get unloaded. So when your inventory is sitting there for 4, 5, 6 weeks, that's what's happening. Something else is probably happening when it's sitting there for 3 months, and I'll get into that. But that's what's happening. That's because contractually they were forced to drop those trailers because they belong to Amazon. So that's how this industry works. So when you go to a preferred partner and you're taking advantage of the deep savings for preferred partner, you're opening yourself up and you're exposing yourself to that type of a system. So what should you be doing? We'll go into what you should be doing to get around that. And the first thing that you should be doing is talking to your 3PLs and your freight forwarding representatives. I honestly learned about all of this from my own 3PL owner. What I'm going to tell you and how things are operating right now could change in 3 months. So the best people to know would be the 3PLs and the freight forwarding reps. We're used to treating these guys like order takers. We say, here's what I want, let me place my order. And, especially with our 3PLs, we place our order, we create our shipping labels on Amazon, and we send them off to them and we say, we cross our fingers that it'll all be okay. This mostly like small parcel delivery is usually not as much of a problem with Amazon shipping as the LTL, FTL issue. So that's your normal habit. So you need to start going and talking to these representatives. They're going to tell you what is the current fastest way, because Amazon freight used to be the fastest way. It was the cheapest and it was the fastest. Now it's the cheapest. So you want to make sure that you understand how the industry is working. So become friends with these guys. Next is stop defaulting to using Amazon partner carriers. It would cost more money to use non-partner carriers, but they have what I call a better net check-in time right now. And that's because even if they get a later delivery appointment, they actually have, they don't have that contract where they have to drop their trailer. They show up, they pull to the loading dock and they unload your stuff and they drive away with their trailer. So that appointment time that they have is actually your delivery time. Your stuff will get checked in at that time because they don't have that relationship. So you need to make sure that you understand, which ones have the relationship and which ones don't. Talk to your 3PLs. And if you really need to get your stuff in right away, make sure that you are going a different way. And again, that's for now. As things start to speed up, that could and should change. But that's it's been that way probably for the past 9 months. So that's something to understand. The other thing to understand is that since this is not part of the Amazon shipping network, you're going to need to make sure that your insurance covers any loss. So until Amazon actually receives it, if it gets lost along the way, Amazon's not going to be able to reimburse you. They're not going to be responsible because it's not their partner carriers. So that's something to understand. All right. And then lastly, and this would likely be why someone would wait 3 months for their inventory to check in. Log your trailer numbers. So I'm going to explain why that would be important. When sometimes stuff goes missing, oftentimes it's buried in the yard, right? It's just dropped and it's left somewhere. But sometimes it's actually lost. It actually went to the wrong place. And so the only way that you can have your inventory tracked when it's still in a trailer is with a trailer number. Amazon can't track your packages. They don't have X-ray vision where they can look into a trailer and see, okay, that's the trailer that I need to open up to find his lost inventory. They can track trailer numbers though. They log the trailer numbers. They know what trailers are in their lot. So if your 3PL logs the trailer number, you can look up the trailer number and find your inventory. One case that happened with a warehouse that we work with someone else's inventory, not ours, luckily, but the inventory was supposed to go to Nevada. It actually went to California And California opened it up. They said, this isn't ours. They closed it. They didn't know what to do. They forgot about it. And so because the trailer numbers were logged, the 3PL was able to call up and say, hey, here's the trailer number. Where is this? Oh, that's in California. It's not even in Nevada. So what they were able to do is they had to override and authorize a check-in to check in Nevada inventory into California and then sort everything out later. But if they had not authorized that and they had not looked into it, it could have sat there indefinitely. Who knows how long it would have sat there. All right. And lastly, all right, let's talk about how to save more money on your shipping. I'm going to jump in here. Please define LTL and SPD. So LTL is less than truckload, right? You've got a whole trailer and you fill up part of it. FTL is full truckload. You've got a trailer and you fill up the whole thing, right, with your inventory. So that's LTL and FTL, full truckload and less than truckload. And SPD is small parcel delivery, where you've got some boxes. They're loose boxes. Generally, you don't palletize those. You just send the boxes onto someone's truck and they get checked in, relatively quickly. So that's small parcel delivery. All right, and there we go. And then there was another question. We often see Amazon transferring shipments to the point that the transfer would take up to 3 weeks. Can you explain why? It's probably the same issue. It's, just they don't have a lot of people. They don't have enough people to be able to unload that. There's just so much work that it tends to take a lot of time. So sending in, rather than sending in just the basic bare minimum of what you can send in more than what you would need, because you want to make sure that you are, for one, you're getting enough inventory in that it's not, transferring everything. And then for in the second place, make sure that you're sending inventory in well in advance. So yeah, the transferring, it's the same thing. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into what I like to call, there's two sides to this coin. One side is that you're all these little tiny expenses. You pay a little bit here for storage fees, and then you pay for Amazon fees, and all these little expenses. I call them death by paper cuts. Every little tiny little cut, every little tiny expense ends up being just completely debilitating to your business, right? It's the profit erosion. The other thing that I like to say is conversely, right? The opposite side of that is little hinges move big doors. There's little tweaks that you can make to your business and the way that you're handling your logistics that can end up being a lot of money for you. So let's go into a real example. This is something that we ran on our own product, which we were able to save 68 cents per unit, not per carton, per unit. And so let's start with carton weight. So we were shocked to find out that our freight forwarder was going to charge us for every carton as if we had at least 12 kilograms. We had cartons that were 7.7 kilograms and were treated as if they were 12. We were going to be charged excess inventory or excess cost for the same amount of units. So what that would have ended up meaning is that we would be charged, instead of 11,000, you'd be charged 17,000. That's over $6,000 a month in additional fees, right? Or $75,000 a year. So this is something to understand, is how are you being charged, right? Do you have these weight minimums being imposed on you? If that's the case, you need to start thinking about how you can increase the weight. And so that's exactly what we did. Went from 24 units per carton to 40 units per carton, went from 417 cartons to 250 cartons that handled those weight problems, but it also helped with the per carton fees. Send inventory into your 3PL, and then you have fees, carton pull fee, carton labeling fee, and those fees added up to $3.60 per carton. So the savings by cutting down the number of cartons was $600 in savings per month, or $7,000 per year. Now, it's important when you're starting to put more units per carton, you need to make sure that your cartons are built so that they actually don't crush those units. You need to make sure that, you know, you've got maybe 7-layer cardboard, working with your supplier, with your freight forwarder, even with an inspection company, and make sure you've constructed those cartons properly. I wouldn't say you could just work with your supplier, because we've had times where, you know, putting too much into any one carton has caused, you know, crushing. And then the money that you're trying to save, you lose in what's called inventory shrinkage, which means losing your inventory in some way, sometimes you know, based on theft or based on damages. So with this scenario, total carton optimization, 68 cents per unit in savings between weight fees and carton fees, $6,000, almost $7,000 per month, or $82,000 per year. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of money that can be saved when you do this. Imagine doing this across your entire catalog, right? This is, I think, one of the most important things you could probably do for the profitability of your business this year. You know, we talk about negotiating with our supplier to lower those costs. We talk about improving, you know, our Amazon ads and our listings to increase sales and lower ad cost. But nobody is talking about optimizing cartons, optimizing your packaging, your cartons, your pallets, your containers. I'm currently building out a tool that will allow you to, like I mentioned, allow you to figure out the best configuration for how many, getting the maximum number of units per carton possible within Amazon's parameters, and the maximum usage of your pallet space, optimizing your pallet space so that you're not losing inches or feet off of any area, so that you're actually optimizing how you're packaging your stuff, so that the more units that you can get on a single pallet, the less you're paying in storage fees and in shipping fees. If we have to spend $10,000 per container, then the person that gets more units per container ends up making more money and making more profit. Here's some valuable tools. Like I mentioned, we are working on a container tool, and the container tool will actually replace this pallet tool. But for now, you've got you've got your product size. There's a tool called Smart Scout. It's a paid tool, and it's important to know that it's a paid tool. But what the benefit is there is it'll actually tell you how to get into lower size tiers, changing up your packaging to get into lower size tiers. That can be very valuable, because then you're paying less in Amazon fees, and you're also able to fit more units per carton, right? So that's something to consider. Is there a way to reduce your packaging? Is that possible? Could you save more money by doing that? Then you've got your pallet, right? Pallet optimization. There's a tool called onpallet.com. This one's a free tool. And then there's a tool called peertopeer.com/load-calc, right? That's a calculator for containers, how to build out your container so that you're fitting as many boxes in there as possible, and how exactly to configure it. Very valuable. These are all tools that we plan to build into SoStocked and roll them into SoStocked. Right now, I'm offering these here, but we will eventually build these optimization tools into SoStocked in this next year. As far as exiting, so, you know, if you do plan to exit your business, these types of things are things that you should be thinking of in, you know, within, I would say, 12 to 24 months of your exit, because your value is going to be based on how much money you make, right? So saving money and increasing profit helps to increase your exit valuation. So we look at $82,000 in annual savings for that carton optimization we did. That would be at a 5x multiple, over $400,000 back in your pocket. If you do pallet optimization, you save $15,000 on increasing the amount of utilization of that carton, getting more units per pallet. That ends up being $75,000 on exit. Air freight, saving on no longer doing air freight, doing a lot more, you know, streamlining of your logistics, saving $50,000 in air freight costs. That would be $250,000. Stockouts, avoiding stockouts, you know, using a tool like SoStocked, $40,000 in savings, we estimate, would turn into $200,000. So if you look at the annual savings, let's say for a large business, 182,000 savings could end up being almost $1 million in sales, in savings, in money in your pocket upon your exit at a 5x multiple. Can you afford to lose that type of money? It's a huge amount of money on both sides of the coin, right? The money that you could reinvest into better scaling up your business by getting these systems right? Not just trying to pour on the marketing efforts, but also really streamlining your logistics, your operations. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. I think it's time for us to go in that direction. We're passionate about building tools to lead in that direction, to help to increase the value of your company, increase the profit and the money in your pocket, and increase the ability for people to scale their businesses. So it's something to really start looking into, diving into ways that you can save money. If you're on our email list, which you should be, since you are currently on this webinar, you should be on our email list. Once we launch that tool, we will announce it. The Carton Pallet Optimizer, it's a beast. We've worked hours, countless hours on it. I've personally worked on, the formulas and how to actually analyze the best way to build those cartons with the products that you have, the best way to build those pallets. So, as close to 100% of that pallet is being used. Once we have launched that tool, we will let you know about it. So focus on flexibility and on details to dominate in 2022. Again, sostock.com, just really quick as we wrap up. I know I have a quick question. I do have a 3PL right now. How can I send inventory myself with someone who can get the truck loaded at the appointment time rather than with Amazon partner? Contact your 3PL and tell them that you want to find out, what are the fastest ways of getting inventory into Amazon without using Amazon partner carrier. If you're using small parcel delivery and you're not sending less than truckload, Amazon partner carrier should be okay. But again, call them and have that conversation. Say, is Amazon partner carrier okay for small parcel delivery still? And they can say yes, or they can say no. And if they say it is not, for whichever method you're trying to ship, if it is not the best way, then go ahead and ask them what the best way is, because they're going to have the best way because they do a lot of this shipping. Bob Chang, the other small parcel delivery, first choice shipping, Pearl is one of the owners of that company. Reach out to First Choice Shipping. I think they do a lot of really cost-effective small parcel shipping. Bob has a question about any recommended partner for liquidation. Shoot, I do have one. The name is escaping me. Reach out to me and I can let you know who it is. But basically, they do liquidation where they'll take your inventory and then they'll split the cost of whatever they sell it for. So that's a little bit different than liquidation where they'll pay you, pennies on the dollar or whatever. And they're going to be selling it on things like eBay and, other discount sites and things like that. And then they'll pay you 50% out of whatever they make. So yeah, reach out to me. I'm sorry, just the name escapes me currently. So I'm happy to provide that information for you off of the call. Okay, really quickly. So sostock.com. So we are the first fully customized Amazon inventory management software built for sellers by sellers. And when I say that, it sounds very cliche, but it means that we're built for sellers by the hundreds of sellers that we've listened to in terms of feedback. And we also include factoring restock limits into your forecast. We have over 1,000 happy customers. We do free data migration, and we also do one-on-one onboarding calls. So we have a team that's ready to talk to you about your business, about how best to structure your inventory management within our system. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, sostock.com. You can also reach out to me. I'm at sostock.com/connect. Ask me any questions. There's a demo on there that you can also jump on. Okay, we have another question. Regarding Amazon Europe, would you recommend first choice shipping small parcel or regional express with local storage? with the downside to coordinate shipments through Amazon 3PL. So first choice shipping, I am actually not sure if they do over in Amazon Europe. So I can't say. I used Regional Express a long time ago, years ago. But I would say, you know, check with Regional and check with First Choice to see if they do small parcel. You know, compare prices. And we always ask we survey inside of the group a lot of the time. So you can survey inside of, if you're a SoStocked member, you can survey inside of the SoStocked group as well and ask them what they recommend. But we do have a couple of different resources for you that you can reach out to me, and I am happy to share those. All right. Here's just a little bit about our tool. We do customizable forecasting per SKU, right? All of the points that we talked about are able to be controlled within SoStocked. Restock limits, setting your velocity based on, you know, your own needs, trends, sales spikes, stock out factoring, additional sales growth. Inventory timeline is my favorite tool because it helps you to understand on a daily basis what is happening with your inventory. To my understanding, there's, you know, we created this and there's not been other tools that have been offering this type of visualization and granularity. Order and transfer tracker, right? In production and route, what's showing up, what's, you know, in production, what's actually, you know, arriving to FBA or to your third-party warehouse. Customizable inventory dashboard. All of those reports that we talked about at the beginning, those reports are available on the inventory dashboard. And then PO and transfer creation. So the PO and transfer creation, able to create and to generate POs that you can then send to your suppliers or your warehouses with the push of a couple of buttons. We have a lot of reviews on the Amazon App Store. Forecasting is hands down the most accurate, solved 99% of my inventory problems, getting rid of spreadsheets forever, or making much more money, and so on. There's a lot of different reviews on there. Feel free to look at those. I hope this was helpful to you. We do have a free trial that we are offering currently. If you go on the website, there is a banner that you can click. It's sostocked.com, and then click the banner where it says, you know, free trial, and you will get access to a free trial, something that we're doing right now. If you have any questions, you can connect with me at sostocked.com/connect. You can also learn more about me, about us at sostocked.com/about. And then if you're interested in getting, you know, getting more information about, you know, some of the current events, sostocked.com/headlines has all of the news stories that we keep pushing out to the Amazon base. So go ahead and feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to check out SoStocked. I hope this was helpful to you guys. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay.